The legislation, one area that we have to deal with year in and year out for your interest is procurement legislation. And every year there are a number of legislators who come in with bills that they think they can improve the procurement system. We had one of the greatest onslaughts of that issue that we've had since the Gilmore administration. During the Gilmore administration, one year there were about 13 bills the administration put in to try to totally revamp the procurement system, and we were quite fortunate then to prevent just about all of them from passing. Well, this year, again, we had a lot of them in the preference area. And first, there was a House Bill 334 that Ron Villanueva had here that was a bid match preference for procurements under $100,000. Now, let me say, not every one of these bills applied to professional services. Some of them only required for bids for goods and non-professional services and not competitive negotiations. But even in that case, we have to be careful about what passes, because if it passes one year in that area, they'll come back the next year and want to get it on the competitive negotiations for professional services. So this is a bid match preference bill, and it would say that a Virginia business could match the low bidder. If an out-of-state bidder won the procurement, then the Virginia business could match that low bidder if that Virginia business's bid was within 5% of what the low bid was, or $10,000, whichever was less. So that was one process that attempted to get through. But I give credit. There were a couple bills with that same concept, identical bills. But I give credit to Ron Villanueva, a legislator from down here. Once we went and sat down with him and talked about it and the concerns we had about it, he really didn't press it that hard. And Ron Villanueva is the new chairman of the subcommittee in the House General Laws Committee on procurement matters. So he's going to be a very important legislator and a good friend of Senator Wagner, but a very important legislator. You know, we were successful in having that bill just left in the committee, and it did not get out. Another bill that Dave Toscano, delegate and minority leader in the House from Charlottesville, would allow localities and public institutions of higher education, being from Charlottesville, and regional public bodies to give preference to persons, firms, or corporations having principal place of business in such locality. So again, another preference. And all of these sound good. I mean, when first blush, when you look at it, it sounds good. Let's try to keep business local. But how do you feel? Is all your business local, or do you bid on projects in other areas of the state? And do you compete out of state? And we can end up with retaliation. There are a lot of retaliatory clauses where if we pass something on preference in Virginia, you're going to another state, you will be faced with that same reverse preference on you. Another two bills that were put in by Delegate McQuinn in Richmond and Senator Marsh in Richmond, and this all came out of a procurement in Richmond that got controversial because Richmond chose a Denver company to do the promotion of the Convention Tourist Bureau or something in Richmond, and there was a lot of hoopla about, well, you know, we got plenty of talent in Richmond, and it should have been a Richmond business that got that contract. Well, Delegate McQuinn, former councilwoman in the city of Richmond, and Henry Marsh, the former mayor in the city of Richmond, put in bills that would authorize localities to prefer local bidders given up to a 10% preference on any bids that were put out. Another bill, locality could include in contracts a requirement that the contractor ensure that a specified percentage of the workers on the specific contract would come from the locality. Up to 20% could be required that you show that they would come from the locality. Again, both of those bills we were able to keep from coming out of committee, and they died. Another bill on licensure that Scott Linghamfelter put in, a retired military officer who is in the House, that would allow substantially equivalent military training and education and experience would be accepted by DPOR and the Department of Health Professions for dentists and doctors, except dentists and doctors were accepted, but everybody else that's licensed by the Department of Health Professions, that you would give equivalent credit for military training and education and experience towards licensure requirements in Virginia. Again, Ron Villanueva had a bill, and of course what happens is not unusual when someone has a bill in a particular area to go to the chairman of that subcommittee to ask them to put the bill in, or chairman of the full committee, and so that's why Ron Villanueva would show up again, I think, on this bill, but require localities to post procurement notice in Department of General Services EVA website. Now, this is something we got very involved in, and Rich Slawowski, whom I think all of you know, the head of the Department of General Services, came and spoke to the committee of the architects and engineers that we have that meets weekly to review legislation. He came to see us about this one because Rich feels like that it really would be good for the profession if you had one place you could go and find out about all RFPs that are on the street from local governments, and not have to go and buy newspapers around the state and follow newspapers or whatever. And so this was going to sort of centralize, local governments would put all of their RFPs in EVA, and then they could have the option of publishing in a newspaper they wanted, but it would not be required to. Of course, the Virginia Press Association, Ginger Stanley, the Virginia Press Association, did not like that a whole lot, and the Press Association opposed it. The bill did get out of the House, but it was killed in Senate committee, and I am sure they'll be back next year and they'll be working that further in the Senate.